Hey there! Welcome to this special video in which I will not actually review a pen, but will talk about things. Questions that you've asked me. This should have been video 405. Then I went abroad for just a weekend, and I just uploaded a video so that you had to have something else to look at while I was gone. Now it's video 406, and I invited you to ask me personal questions, or general questions. 400 videos. Wow, that's a lot of videos, and I'm very pleased, and I really enjoy doing this. So it's great. Now the thing is, without you, I mean you, these videos would not exist because there would be no audience. It would be pointless to make them. So your continued support, or your subscriptions and nice comments, nice messages, etc. are truly and greatly appreciated. Now, as you might hear, my voice is a little odd. I have a bit of a throat ache, but I'm going to try and see how far we'll get. Now, I have your questions saved, so I'll just have to look to the side every once in a while. I'm going to take them in no specific order. There was a post on Fb Geeks where you could ask questions. Some people send me stuff through email. Everything I got, I'm going to try and answer, and I'll try to be as to the point as possible, but some questions, yeah, they require a bit of a longer answer. Okay, John asks me, if you could only have one pen for a year on a desert island, what would it be? Desert island. Deserted island. Desert island. Well, anyway, I'm not sure whether I pronounced it correctly. The answer is one of these two pens. It's either an Opera Elements by Visconti or it's this Parker 75. And the reason is, if you've seen a couple of my videos, you probably know this was my first serious fountain pen, and therefore I have a strong connection to it. And also, it's just a beautiful pen. It is absolutely wonderful. I love it. If you just have a look at the nib, you may see what I mean. Beautiful, gorgeous, big nib. Has some nice spring to it. Absolutely love it. And then, of course, there is the material. The material is, well, not exactly punishment to look at either. So I really love it. The other one is a Parker 75. The reason I love that is that I got this from my grandfather. It's an heirloom. And of course, that means a lot to me. So one of those two pens I would take. For writing pleasure, the Visconti. For emotional attachment, the Parker 75. Okay. Rob asks, nib swapping, and can nibs from one pen and feed work in another style or model of pen? The answer, product placement. I'm actually not sponsored. Sorry. Does it work? Well, the answer is, that's a complicated question. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Noodless pens are designed to allow you to swap nibs. Feeds is already a bit more complicated, but nibs you should be able to swap. A lot of other pens are not. They will only take one pen. One nib, and you see that with a lot of the large players in the field, in the pen market. But Noodlers does this, so Noodlers is definitely a brand to check out. Does it always work? Not really. You may have to heat set the feed. There was a good video on that by Mr. Tardif, who makes Noodler's pens, or at least is the founder of the company. It's something you may have to do. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So it really depends on the pen, but experiment. I once put a vintage 14K Mont Blanc nib on a Noodler's pen, and that was very interesting. It was interesting because clearly those pens are not extremely expensive, and 14K gold nib, bit of flex, Mont Blanc. It was kind of a weird match, but it worked, and it made the pen super smooth, very pleasant to use. So experiment, have fun, that's all I can say. Okay, then we have a question from Heath. He says, is there a way to prevent the first few words I write after a brief pause from being more saturated? He uses a Lamy Safari with a fine nib and Lamy Blue as an ink. Well, I suppose we're talking about shading here. Shading is a fundamental property of some inks, and I don't think Lamy Blue is the most fantastic shader in the world. And actually, I would expect the first words to be less saturated, because the nib and feed dry out a bit, then you start to write. Then the feed is more saturated as you go. I would try another ink and just see what that does. Maybe it's just the Lamy Blue that doesn't really work well with your pen or with your style of writing. If that doesn't work, I don't know. You can make your nib a bit wetter. I have videos on that. You could make it a bit drier. I have a video on that. It's a bit more difficult, but you can do that. Experiment. Yeah. I really have to check out the nib to give you full advice on whether something may be wrong. If you really don't like this type of shading and differences in ink color, use black. Black is usually black, so it doesn't really shade at all. It's just one color. Maybe that's a tip. Okay, then we have Vern. Vern asks, what are your career plans post-graduation? Good question. I'm working on a PhD in cognitive neuroscience / cognitive psychology, or the other way around, depends a bit on your point of view. There are certain aspects of academia that I like, and there are certain aspects of academia that I don't like. Ideally, I think I would like to give it one more shot with a postdoc, see if it's really what I would like to do. There are some beautiful aspects of academia, such as the ability to work in an interdisciplinary team, interact with a lot of people. I'm by training a psychologist, but I interact with a neuroanatomist, a neurobiologist. I interact with psychiatrists. I have had to learn about a bit about cardiology. I've had to learn. I can give people IV drips, which is something that psychologists usually don't do, but for my research I needed that, so you can learn that skill. I think that's a very nice aspect of academia. And I absolutely love teaching, so if I could get a teaching position, I would definitely not complain. Alright, Michelle asks, we know you're an FP geek, but are you a geek about anything else as well? Yes, a couple of things. There are samurai swords. I haven't purchased new ones for a while, but I have a modest collection. Modern-made swords, mainly in China, but they are functional, so you can actually chop with them. They're not just for decoration. I have a large collection of Orthodox Church music. I absolutely love Orthodox Church music. Pretty much all the CDs you see there are Orthodox, and then there's quite a bit of whoops over there too. I really find it fascinating music, so that's something I'm quite geeky about, because I guess I would not really call myself an expert at it, because I'm not a musicologist and I cannot produce music, so there's a lot of stuff I don't understand. But I do love the hymnology, the theory behind it, the tonal system, that kind of stuff. I find it very fascinating. So it's more than just listening to it. So I would say that's fairly geeky. Same goes for the swords. I know a lot about the different types and what they were used for, etc. I'll come back to the swords in a later question. And anything else? Well, I like astronomy. I have a telescope which you can't really see, but it's right there. You see it in the background of some of my videos. I don't really have a lot of time to do stargazing right now, because I have to get up early in the morning to go to work, and then it's not really nice to have very late nights. So I like that. I absolutely love art, painting. I was in Germany this weekend. I visited a beautiful museum with a lot of medieval art. I find that extremely fascinating. So that's really something I enjoy, mainly painting, but looking at painting, trying to understand the story behind it, and that's something you really get in medieval painting, like crucifixion scenes, etc., that kind of stuff. I find it very, very interesting. So that's something I'm pretty geeky about, and I can actually tell sometimes someone was with me, and I can actually explain, oh, that's a little flower, and that symbolizes the crown of thorns, etc. Blah blah. So yeah, that's pretty geeky. Okay, FP owner says, I've got a few questions. Can you show us the dog that barks in most of your videos? Could you do a video of showing your whole FP collection and all laid out? How do you store all the pens you own? Not EDC, but how you store them. The dog is indeed my dog, one of two dogs. The first one is Dizzy Miss Lizzie. She is a German Shepherd, and she's nuts. So the name Dizzy Miss Lizzie is awfully well chosen. It's a nice dog, but she barks a lot. It's just the way things are. The other dog is called Pino. Pino is a smaller dog, and he barks too. When we got him, he didn't really bark, but Dizzy made him hysterical too. I don't know how she did it, but he now has the same weird high-pitched bark as she does. I may see if I have a picture, and then I'll try to put that in the video just so that you have an idea. Could you do a video of showing your whole FP collection all laid out? No, I don't think so. The reason is quite simple. I mean, I could probably upload a picture somewhere of all the pens, but if I do a video, I haven't counted, but I'm either, well, I'm at about 200 pens now. That means that if I talk for 30 seconds about one pen, which is not a whole lot, and I do that for every pen, then you have a video of about 1 hour and 40 minutes. And some pens I will have more to say about. That would be one really long video, and I could split it up into parts. But I'm not really sure what the point would be, because all the pens I own are covered in reviews. I'm thinking of some type of indexing system to help you find the reviews, but for now I don't think it's possible. How do you store all the pens I own? Well, that's very simple. They are stored in pouches, so it's not spectacular. I don't have any beautiful pen boxes or anything. All I have is this type of stuff, and there's just a lot of pens in them, you see. So it's not, I mean, I can show you this, but that's all there's to it. So it's not beautiful oak wood boxes from the Middle Ages or whatever. It's just pouches. This one happens to be my Macchiato, which is a daughter brand of Delta. I'm just reaching there. I got these ones. These are from China. I think 20 bucks a piece. They hold 48 pens. It's all I need. It's nothing fancy. They have 2 bands to keep the pens in place, whereas the Macchiato only has 1. So I actually prefer that in these pouches. The zippers sometimes break. It's cheap, but it will work. And then recently I got this from China, which is quite cool. You want to buy some pens? Holds 48 pens. Now don't get all excited. These elastic bands are very close together. You see, you can put one between there too. That isn't going to work. It's too narrow. So I can only put in half the capacity, like pen empty, etc. And then it sort of works, and it only takes very slim pens. So forget about stuffing a Viscontis in there. That's not going to work. Still, it's a pretty decent solution. It doesn't take up a whole lot of space. And I think I paid about $5 for this, including shipping. I believe, something like that. It was ridiculously cheap, and it's decently made. So check out the eBay for good pen storage solutions. You don't have to pay that much. Okay. Then we have Putster for Par 4. I think. What's the dog's name barking in the background of your videos? Is it a German Shepherd? Well, I've already covered that. Yes, it is a German Shepherd. Dizzy Miss Lizzie. She's very kind. Alack, she's nuts. Then we have Inanna. Inanna asks, what inks have you only used once? Gute Frage. Oh, I know. Gerbin, Bouton d'Or, Gerbin Diabolomante. I think that's it. I like Gerbin. They make nice inks. The problem is some of the inks are too light for me. I don't like inks that are very light, so light that they are illegible when they're on the paper. To me, that defeats the purpose of having that ink, which is to write with it and be able to read back what you wrote. They're beautiful inks. Bouton d'Or has a beautiful bright yellow color, but it's so yellow that you can't read it. Diabolomante, beautiful soft blue, but it's so light that it can't be read. So I don't use them. I used them once, I tried them, I liked them, but now they're in a drawer unused. They're good for artistry, you know, artistic purposes, but that's all. Now we have Grumpy Old Guy. Grumpy Old Guy says, when I began using, maybe I should read that in old voice, when I began using fountain pens, I was told to hold the barrel of an inked pen still while turning the cap, either to remove the cap or replace it. I've turned it to the professor now, sorry. The idea was not to disturb the ink any more than necessary and minimize the possibility of ink leaking from the nib. I've noticed some online celebrities uncapping and capping filled pens by turning the barrel. Has pen and nib production advanced to the point that this protocol is no longer? I highly doubt it. I was taught to hold the barrel of an inked pen still while turning the cap. It makes sense. It makes a lot of sense to me. If nothing else, what I notice is that sometimes I get ink drops in the cap, and if you twist the barrel fairly quickly, I suppose you could cause some ink spray into the barrel. And just holding the barrel still and just rotating the cap, it makes a lot of sense to me. I've never really given it any thought, but you know what? I'm going to try that, and I'm going to see if it makes a difference, because it makes a lot of sense. I doubt that the nib and feed things have advanced so much that it is no longer necessary, although I could see how maybe a plastic feed versus an ebonite feed might make a difference, but it seems a bit far-fetched to me. But I like the theory. I'm going to try that. Martin asks, does Professor Dangleberry ever walk about the streets where you live? You must go back a long way, as he leaves his hat in your room. Smiley. Also, where did you learn to dance like that while still sitting in your chair? Good question. Okay, so we have indeed, let me just twist the camera a bit, there's the telescope, the professor's hat, and Lord Windermere. The professor and I are very good friends. Sometimes he just drops by and he says, oh, I'm sorry, I would like to take a nap. And then he would just go into my bed and just sleep. Not while I'm in there, obviously. But I mean, that is kind of what happens. Yeah, so we get along pretty well. He's an odd fellow. A bit awkward, socially awkward, you know. Fortunately, I'm not at all. So I get along well. Great guy. He knows a lot about pens, and most of what I've learned, or what I know, I've actually learned from him. So that's kind of cool. And yeah, he leaves his stuff here. Lord Windermere, he's visiting. It happens. He just drops by and says, "Oh, am I getting some crab salad?" Or you know, that kind of stuff. It's great fun. It's always a lot of fun to interact with him. He's Lord Windermere. I could tell you stories. It's crazy. He's a bit of a womanizer, you know. You've got to be. Well, anyway, it's great fun. The professor is awesome. Okay, now, where did I learn to dance while still sitting in my chair? Yes, I recall I've done 1 or 2 videos where I sort of do that. It's a skill. It's something you just learn at some point, where you sit a lot in chairs. That's all I'll say about it. Okay, then we have Jen. Jen says, where's your favorite place you've traveled? Another good question. A lot of the standard answers to that question I cannot give because I have not been there. I've never been to New York. I've never been to Naples, Bologna, Milano. Never been to Florence, but I'm going there for a conference soon. There's a couple of cities that I really like. I like nature. I like hikes. But I also really like culture. So yeah, there's a couple of cities that I really like. One of them is, I actually have to think. No, one of them is London. London is a great city. There's a lot to see there, and it's just very unique. It's architecture. It's very interesting. Another city I really like is Cologne in Germany. A lot to see there. I think most Germans hate it. In fact, I think most people hate it. But the thing is, there's a lot to see. You just need to know where to find it, where to look for it. And that's just culture. That's just cultural stuff. Checking out church architecture, museums, etc. Nature-wise, I once spent a holiday in Thüringen, which is a part of Germany that is the old Eastern Germany. Beautiful nature. You really have old forest there, and you know, a nice, nice nature, good stuff. That's great fun to hike there. So for nature, that's absolutely one of my favorites. Okay, another question from Vern. Vern asks, do you anticipate continuing with your videos and the FB Geeks once you are finished with your studies? Absolutely. As long as I will keep getting pens, I'll review them, I'll be part of the Geeks as far as I'm concerned, unless they want to kick me out. But until that happens, it will be my pleasure to hang around and keep doing stuff there. Rahul asks, would you use Noodler's bulletproof black or axe feather in an expensive fountain pen such as a Sailor, Visconti, Omas, etc. and vintage pens, or just in cheap pens? Also, which is your favorite black ink? Let's start with the final question first. I'm not a huge user of black. Aurora black is considered the gold standard by many people. I like that. I like Gerbin Perle Noire. Nice ink. Pretty black. I was thinking for a second that, but that's pretty black. Visconti black is, especially in a broad or more flexy nib, it leans a bit towards grey, very dark grey. And Perle Noire is actually very black. So I would recommend one of those two. Would I use Noodler's ink in expensive pens? Well, it's up to you whether you want to do that. Personally, I don't. $20 is the most expensive pen I will put Noodler's ink in. Many people put it in more expensive pens. It's just my personal rule. I once significantly discolored a Kaweco Sport cap with Bay State Blue. It fell into strongly diluted Bay State Blue. It must have been at least 95% water and 5% BSB at best. It was discolored. And I could reverse that by putting it in some water with bleach. But I was startled. It was just blue. And that was just Bay State Blue. That's typical ink. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Noodler's inks. Right now, what I have here is an orange Visconti Rembrandt, and in there is Apache Sunset, because it matches very well with the finish of the pen. No problems. But just to make sure I don't take any risks with my pens, I wouldn't do it. There are many horror stories of vintage pen sacks being ruined by Noodler's ink, but I think it's 99% of the cases Bay State Blue. So I would try to avoid that one in vintage pens. And Noodler's black, bulletproof black, I don't know, I've never used it. X Feather I have used, never had any problems with it. So I have nothing against Noodler's. Let that be clear. Okay, Richard asks, sip. I heard you do some work in neuroeconomics research. What basic principles of psychology should an undergraduate economics student look into if he's interested in participating in behavioral economics research? Also, could you talk a bit about those fantastic looking swords in the background? Smiley. Yeah, I haven't really done neuroeconomics research for a while, but I have published a review on that about neuroeconomics. Okay, those of you who are not familiar with that, it's a very fascinating field where economists, neuroscientists, and psychologists collaborate. Economists know about decision-making and mathematical models. Neuroscientists know about the brain. And psychologists know about cognition, thinking. How do people think? Why? Etc. How do they make decisions? Why? It's a very interesting multidisciplinary collaboration. And I wrote a review on how aging affects the processes of making economical decisions. Very simple example is economical discounting. So if I ask you, what do you want? Do you want $5 now, or do you want $20 in a month? Then you have to think, right? What do I need? $5 now is pretty sweet, but $20 in a month is more. But can I wait that long? Maybe I need the money now, etc. If you are an undergraduate student and you want to participate in behavioral economics research, I would definitely look into modeling. Modeling is useful. If you want to go into the neuroeconomics field, definitely learn about the brain. So try to take, I don't know, psychophysiology, biological psychology, courses like that, and definitely decision making. Definitely decision making. So either in statistics, in psychology, or in economy. But check that out. Could I talk about a bit about those fantastic looking swords in the background? Yes. There is a video on my channel, which is about 25 minutes long, which I talk exclusively about my swords. But it is a hidden link. Not because I don't want people to see it, but because I assume not everyone will be interested. Now here's the deal. If 15 people tell me that they are interested, comment, I'll make that publicly available. So, mobilize your friends, buddy. Okay, next question. Michelle. Michelle says, congratulations. Thank you. I saw your everyday carry video, among many others, and gathered that you were an instructor because you carry a highlighter and dry erase marker with you. What subjects do you teach? Correct. In the Netherlands, when you're doing a PhD, you are obliged to spend 50% of your time teaching, which is good because I love teaching. I teach a couple of things. I teach basic academic skills, which means that I teach first-year students, so freshmen, scientific writing, presenting. I love giving those courses because it's a very practical thing to teach people, and you can really see your students improve, which is one of the most rewarding things I can think of. Also, you can communicate your passion for a specific topic, which is another reason I really like teaching. I give well, sort of practical tutorials in a course called Cognitive Neuroscience. The practicals are mainly students reading papers and giving presentations on them, but I also give one lecture in that course on the emotions and the brain, which is a very interesting topic I've done a little bit of research on. And then this year I will also give a few lectures in a course called Human Potential, so how to maximize your potential using drugs, meditation, that kind of stuff. And I will teach a course called Pharmacology of Cognition. I find pharmacology extremely interesting, and it's a cool course, so I'll be giving that this year. So that's what I do. Okay, and then we have Michelle. Could be another Michelle, could be the same Michelle. Michelle asks, do you like kitties? Well, I've always considered myself to be a bit of a dog person more than a cat person, but that was mainly because we've always had dogs, not cats. I have nothing against cats. I like many animals, actually. So, kitties are fine. Then we have number 6. Number 6 actually asks a very direct question. He says, congratulations, how does one send you ink to review? I bought a case of small bottles of Schaefer King's Gold, 12 milliliter. Quite difficult to find, yes it is. But a very good ink. I would be happy to send you 1 or 2 5 milliliter vials if that's better. I could live with that. They would go into the encyclopedia. This is my email address. If you drop me a line there, I can send you my address and we can work something out. Because I don't have a PO box. It's just my home address. So I don't want to put that just out there. Okay? Because I greatly appreciate the offer. So, thanks. Alright, then we have Kevin. He says, congratulations, Dr. Brown. Thank you. I'm not officially a doctor yet, you know, but still, thank you. My question, as an ink expert. You mean that you are an ink expert, or do you think I'm an ink expert? Because I'm not an ink expert. My question, as an ink expert, what is the closest match to Bay State Blue? Non est in toto sanctior orbe locus. Interesting. Bay State Blue is unique. And no, I don't know. Penman Sapphire? That's a vintage ink. That was sort of the Bay State blue of its time. Yeah, I would say that. Parker Penman Sapphire. That's going to be hard to find because a lot of people have scooped up huge amounts of those bottles when they were discontinued. From Modern Ink, Private Reserve DC Super Show Blue. Maybe. I'm assuming you would like a safe alternative to Bay State Blue. Here's what I'm going to say. Try Waterman Florida Blue, now known as Serenity or Serenity. Is it the same? No, but you'll get a 100% safe ink that is just great to use. Just give that a shot. It's not as spectacular. Bay State Blue is that intenseness. Intenseness, that's not even a word. That intensity. Florida Blue probably does not, but you'll get a good ink. And just to be sure again, Bay State Blue, it's not going to make your pen melt, but for me, that really goes into the very cheap pens. OBKB. Roulant. You're a Dutchie, man. I know, and I actually got the point about crossing out the S, yes. Congratulations, sir. I haven't seen them all yet, but I'm catching up. I'm sorry to say that my wife doesn't like you very much, because each time she hears your voice, she thinks there is a parcel coming, which actually happened quite a few times. Yeah. I'm an enabler. I'm sorry. But it's true. I get a lot of emails from people telling me that their wives hate me. I'm sorry. It's what I do. Let me just put that this way. I'm glad that you find the videos useful, and I make people spend money. I feel a little bit bad about that. I once proposed to someone who told me the same thing about his wife. You know what? Why don't you just send me a wallet? Then I also take your money, and it's done, and you know we're finished. But unfortunately, that didn't really work out. I'm afraid I'm just going to have to keep enabling you. I like doing it. Okay? Cool. Then we have Tanya. Tanya asks me, how tall are you? Another good question. Last measurement, I'm just doing computation there. Last measurement, I was, I think, 184. That's 1 meter and 84 centimeters, which I think is just a little under. Yeah, it's just, I think it was about 5'9" and a bit. So call it 6 foot. It's not a big difference. Something like that. Okay. Let me see. What else have we got? Maya. Maya says, wow, I didn't notice that you've done over 400 YouTube videos. Congrats. Thank you, Maya. You were instrumental in my success in a way, because you were one of the earliest ones. I know that. Thanks for your support. It was your earnestness, good sense of humor, and detail-orientedness. Is that even a word? That's what Maya asks. It is now, Maya. Who cares? That drew me to your YouTube channel, and I'm happy to see that you haven't lost your touch over the years. So am I. I try to be consistent. I was just wondering about that telescope that can be seen in your more recent YouTube videos. What or who do you peer at with this instrument? Okay, if that's too embarrassing, then what about this one? What are some of your favorite non-pen books? The shelves behind your desk are lined with books, so that piqued my curiosity. Thanks in advance, and thanks for all the videos. There is an excessively hot girl. No, actually, the telescope, as I just said, I have an interest in astronomy. It's not very active at the moment, but I do actually like it. And some of the books you see there actually are on astronomy. So that was not a personal question, don't worry. My favorite books that are non-pen related. Well, I greatly loved The Name of the Rose by Umberto Eco. The man is a professor of semiotics, I believe. He wrote a detective story set in the Middle Ages in a monastery It is fantastic. There's a film with Sean Connery, just a movie adaptation of the book. Superb. The atmosphere, the details, the story, it's just fantastic. Absolutely love it. You can see it. You can see it right there. It's the big red one. Oh, move that way, that way, that way. No, that way. Oh, this is very hard. Oh, it's a mirror image. Oh yeah. Oh, different. Yeah, that one. The big red one. Right next to it is Foucault's Pendulum, another great book. Absolutely love that. Let me just check out my books here. On that side you can't really see it, but there is the complete Sherlock Holmes. All the stories of Sherlock Holmes, fantastic. That is just a fantastic read. I highly recommend it. The collected works of Oscar Wilde. He did some brilliant stuff. The Picture of Dorian Gray is a stunning story. You have to read that if you haven't already. Complete works of Chaucer, fantastic poetry. The complete works of Shakespeare, stunning. The complete works of Edgar Allan Poe, some really nice stuff in there. There are some books by Simon Carmichaelt, who was a Dutch author who wrote columns. The man is fantastic. He has this very dry, weird sense of humor. He would just sit down in a bar and just wrote about what he saw, the people talking to him. Fantastic, but that's for Dutchies only. Lord of the Rings, epic books. There's some Japanese, a lot of non-fiction that I read too. And then on this side, that's just all art books. So I have a lot of those too. I think that sort of answers the question. Yeah. Okay. Then we have Lee. Lee says, congratulations on reaching 400 videos. I hope that there are more to come. Absolutely, I'm not nearly done. You certainly seem to know your subject, and I love finding out about new brands and models of pens, even though most of them are out of my price range. I just wish that we had stores like Goulet and Jet Pens in the UK. Yes, I know. My question is, what have you got against ballpoint pens? Well, you see the swords. That's what I have against ballpoint pens. I can probably dig up a hammer here somewhere. Now, ballpoint pens, look, there's nothing against them. In fact, they are very practical. But you can give me a fountain pen any day of the week, and ballpoints, they just cramp up my hands, have to push down too hard on them. I don't like them. I don't like gel pens, I don't like ballpoints, I don't like roller balls. That's not me trying to be a snob, it's just my preferred writing instrument. It's a fountain pen. And that's all there's to it. I just like them all. Ink flows freely. It's great fun to ink them up, to use them, to clean them, to put them to the paper, watch the liquid ink form the lines, watching it dry. Sounds extremely geeky. I love it. Absolutely love it. So, that's all you got. All I got. The reasons I got to use them. Still have a bit of a cold. Sorry. Ray asks, are you a real-life professor? Alas, no. I'm working on a PhD, but I'm far removed from being a professor. So that is not the case yet. Now we have Midge. Midge asks, congratulations, Dr. Brown. Your videos have added so much to the fountain pen community and to the enjoyment of the hobby. Well, thank you very much. That's very kind of you to say. I do my best. As for my question, with which psychologists, classic and or contemporary, do you identify intellectually? Now, that's a fascinating question. Three. Sigmund Freud, actually a psychiatrist. I find him very fascinating. Most of his theories cannot be proven. You cannot actually say that id or ego, superego, exist. You cannot prove that. But I think the man had some good points. First of all, he had guts. I know he wanted to say he had something else, he probably had too, but he definitely had guts. In a very repressed era, he made sex something people talked about, which is an impressive thing to do. Can we trace everything back to sexuality? I don't think so. And most psychoanalysts who are alive these days don't actually believe that. But think about childhood trauma. A lot of things that happen in our youth shape us. And Freud said, well, that's why you are now suffering from hysteria or whatever. He exaggerated that a little bit, but I do believe the point. Our youth is very important. We are shaped there, formed there, and stuff that happens there will reflect in our later ages. Two others. Skinner. Burroughs Frederick Skinner, one of the great behaviorists. The man was nuts. Basically what he says is everything is operant conditioning. So you had Pavlov, with the dogs. You sound a bell, you give them some meat, and then after a while, as soon as you sound the bell, they start to drool because they know that the bell is associated with the meat. Classical conditioning. Skinner took that a bit further. He said, no, you should have some operant conditioning. So that started with Watson. Skinner went on and he said, if you reinforce behavior positively, that behavior will be repeated. And if you punish people or animals for something, that behavior will not be repeated. And he took that very far, very far. He invented the Skinner box. You can put a rat in there, and then, you can reward him for certain things, and at some point they will start to do that. He taught pigeons. He worked with pigeons a lot. He taught pigeons to make pirouettes because he called that shaping. So once they took one step to the left, for example, he would give them a food pellet. At first they didn't realize what was going on, but after a couple of times they thought, oh, I take a step to the left, food, boom. And then he kept going and going and going until they took 2 steps, 3 steps. So in the end, he had a pigeon that would just make pirouettes all the time and would get food. He actually invented the pigeon-guided rocket. So this was something he invented, and he actually presented this at the Pentagon. He had pigeons trained. They would keep the picture of the skyline of a given city centered. So they would be in a rocket. They could peck at different buttons to sort of steer the rocket to keep that skyline in sight, so they would hit the city full on. The guy was nuts, but it's beautiful. He came up with this idea of you should reinforce positive behavior. Still very crucial. He took it a bit too far, and he said everything is operant conditioning. And then Noam Chomsky came along, great political scientist, linguist, psychologist. The man's a lot. And he said, are you nuts? If everything is reinforced, then how can you make a single sentence? Then you would have to reinforce that sentence for someone to be able to utter it. So that's rubbish. And then Skinner was kind of done. But I like his extremely scientific approach. It was a bit too scientific. Human behavior is not that predictable. But the idea of reinforcing the good stuff and punishing the bad stuff, or even better, ignoring the bad stuff, that works. Look at young children. Finally, Carl Rogers. He was a clinical psychologist. One of the kindest people who ever lived. He was a humanist, and he said, well, the most important part when you're dealing with a client, he refused to use the word patient. He said client. He was a clinical psychologist. And he said the most important part is to accept someone unconditionally, no matter what they have done, no matter how they feel, no matter what they say. Accept them unconditionally and talk to them, appreciate them. There are beautiful recordings of someone talking to him, very depressed, saying, well, nobody likes me, I'm all alone, I can't do a thing right, everybody hates me. And then Rogers, he invented, that was his standard reaction, to make people talk more. He said you shouldn't really give your opinion, you should just repeat what they say and accept them. So he said, well, let me tell you that I accept you. And the person he was talking to just starts to cry, because in his whole life no one had ever told him that. Should we accept people universally, unconditionally, no matter what they have done? Or with some people that's very difficult. You can all think of some people in history who've done terrible things. But in general, in daily life, if we would be a bit more accepting of each other, I think the world could be a whole lot of a better place. So, I appreciate that. So, those are 3 people, 3 psychologists, 2 psychologists and a psychiatrist that I can identify with at some level. Okay, was a very extensive answer. Sorry. Vern, yet again. Vern was very productive. He asked me another question. He said, have you ever appeared, or have you considered a TV appearance regarding fountain pens to promote the movement? I've never been on TV, at least not fountain pens. I was once on TV when I was very young at a game show. I wasn't actually a contender, I was in the audience because someone in my school was a contender. And I once did some debating stuff, which was on TV. It was for high schools, but it wasn't that spectacular either. Well, why not? Anything we can do to promote fountain pens and the way people enjoy them, every opportunity should be taken. So if anyone would want to offer me or would like me to be on TV, I'll gladly do it. But that opportunity has never really presented itself. Thais asks, what is your favorite milk then? Good question. I hate dairy products. I don't drink milk, I don't eat butter, and I don't eat cheese. Molten cheese is one thing. I can eat pizzas, I like them. But just cheese on bread, sandwiches, I find that very upsetting. I don't know why. I just really, really dislike the taste. So my favorite milk would be milk chocolate. That I can eat a lot of. Now we have Writing Grav. He asks, what is the real nature of your relationship with Professor Danglebury? Yeah, many theories, huh? Many theories. Well, we go back a long way. I think it's safe to say that I've known him all my life. He's a great guy, nuts, knows a lot about pens, a great teacher, and as arrogant as they come, but in general, a good person. Now we have Andy T, who asks the following. He says, congratulations, Stephen. Personal questions, eh? Okay. How many languages, ancient and modern, are you fluent in? Nice question. Dutch people have always been traders. And in the 1600s, our golden age, Dutch was the lingua franca of trade. So if you wanted to trade, you had to speak Dutch. These days, it's English, obviously. And because we are traders, we start to learn English in primary school as a second language. Usually when we're about 11, 12 years old. And it's something that continues in high school, secondary school, for 4, 5, or 6 years, depending on what route you take. Now I say route, okay, so I must be turning into an American. Which route you take depends a little bit on that. 4, 5, or 6 years, and you'll get English all the time. I would say my Dutch is excellent because it's my mother tongue. My English is very good. Then we have German and French, which you also take in school. My German is definitely good. I can read and write German. I can speak it and understand it. I can have a good conversation in German, even on scientific topics, although that is complicated, but I will make errors, but I can definitely convey my message. At least I like to think that. French, I've taken for 6 years in school, and the French language and I are not compatible. I don't know what it is. Le français, c'est la langue de l'amour. I know that, but it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It's not my language. I don't know. I've had Latin and ancient Greek in school for 1 year, and Greek came in very useful because, as I said, I like Orthodox Church music, including Greek Orthodox, but I'm definitely not fluent. I can read and write Greek, both ancient and modern Greek. They use the same alphabet, but generally speaking, different pronunciation, at least. That's what, yeah, it's a complicated story. In any case, I can read and write that. I can read and write Cyrillic. So Russian alphabet. I can read and write Old Church Slavonic, but I don't really speak those languages. I can greet someone in Japanese. That's not being fluent. So in order, I would say Dutch is best, English is a close second, German is good, French is mediocre to acceptable, depending on the day. I could do a fountain pen video in German. but I could not do it in French. So, okay. Benton asks me no less than 4 questions. What are your top FP picks for pens under 50? What are your top FP picks for pens under 150? Then there's 2 more. Let's start with these. Under $50, Lamy Safari is a good starter. Kaweco Sport is a good starter. Italics Pastors Essential is a good one. I would say quite some Chinese pens are good. Jinhao 159, great pen, looks like a 149 except it's cartridge converter fill, and made of metal, by the way. Yeah, that's probably where I would. Yeah. TWSBI Diamond, 580 now. That's $50, right? I think that's a good one. Under 150 is a Lamy 2000 under 150. Isn't it about that price? Probably maybe a bit more expensive. I don't know. That's a good pen. This gets very complicated because I don't have prices in mind for every pen. 150 should definitely get you a bunch of very nice pens. Lamy makes good ones. Parker and Waterman make pens that may not look the most spectacular, but that will definitely write well. Schaefer will get you some good pens at that price. There are definitely options, and I can definitely discuss this in more detail with you personally if you think that's useful. 3. Your grandfather seemed to have a single high-quality pen that he used. What modern pens are still being made that have qualities of craftsmanship or craftsmanship to last a lifetime or more? What are the qualities one should look for when looking for the pen? Good question. First of all, I would say looks, which is a bit odd perhaps, because clearly you will not be looking at the pen but writing with it. But if you don't like the way it looks, then clearly you will not use it all the time. This is a pen that both writes well and is just very pleasant to use. I love the nib. I love everything of this pen. So, you know, looks appeal to me. Love the way it looks. How it writes. If it's a beautiful looker, but it has the scratchiest nib in the world, you're not going to use it unless you adjust it, but if you don't really want to do that. So ideally, try it out. I know that's difficult, not that many brick and mortar stores left, but try someone else's, go to a pen show, etc. Do that. Think about the filling mechanism. How are you going to use this? If you are some company representative that spends a lot of time on the road, you have to do a lot of writing, you probably want to get a piston filler. Why? Because they hold more ink. And on the other hand, filling a piston filler on the road can be a bit of a pain. So maybe go for a cartridge filled pen then. Is it as elegant? No, but it's very easy. So think about the purpose. Where are you going to be using the pen? And for what? Definitely look at your handwriting. That should be obvious. If it's small, get a finer nib. If it's large, get a broader nib. So I would say that. Looks, writing performance, ink capacity. And maybe finally material. If you're really going to knock the pen around, get something made of metal. If it's going to be, you know, treated very well, and celluloid is a nice material, plastic could work. That's what I would say. 4th and final question. I've been amazed by the smoothness and writing experience of the Pilot Petit 1. The nib feels great. Is there a larger body Pilot that you like and would offer a similarly nice nib? The Petit 1 is a funny pen. I tried a Pilot Metropolitan. That's inexpensive, and it's definitely bigger. It's more of a normal sized pen. It's a lot of fun to use, and it feels robust, unlike the Pilot Plumix, which is a very plasticky feel. The Metro I like much better. Okay, then we have JL. Gile. I asked you about it. I still forget. Sorry, too long ago. 2 questions. 1. Will you be attending the annual pen show in Atlanta, Georgia, USA in 2014? Please say yes. I'm hoping to meet both yourself and Brad Dowdy of the Pen Addict blog. I I would love to. The thing is this. First of all, I'm not sure where I'll be in at that time. I mean, my PhD is rounding up at the time, so I just don't know. Going to the US is a long way. Just going to DC, which is the most optimal coast for me to reach because it's the East Coast. On the way back, that was about an 8.5. Sorry, the way to it was about an 8.5-hour flight, which is long. Going further land inwards will only make that flight longer. It's not exactly cheap, so I cannot do a number of US pen shows a year. So if I go to the US for a show, it's most likely to be a big show, so either DC or LA. Just because, I mean, it's crazy expensive. It's a long flight, so if it's a not a huge show, I'm not saying it's not worth my while because that sounds very negative, but if I fly 8.5 hours, then every inch of the show has to be worth it, which probably makes sense, I hope. 2. I have a crazy schoolgirl crush on you, and I want to know if you are single again, hoping for a yes. I'm not single. Sorry. I'm greatly honored, though. I seriously am. But, no, I'm not single. Sorry. Sorry. Seth asks, what does the BRE stand for? It sounds prestigious. Yes. That's why I always keep it in there. SBRE Brown. It stands for the following. The S you know, Stephen. Stephen was a name that was given to me because my mother thought it was nice. Stephen, the proto-martyr, was the first martyr, the first person to be killed for believing, for having the Christian faith. I wouldn't call myself a hardcore Christian, neither are my parents. But it's about the idea. Someone who is willing to die for what he believes in. Well, I have a strong mind, so that name wasn't chosen too poorly. B is for Brendan, as in Saint Brendan. You know, the Irish monk in the little boat? Look up the story. R stands for Ronald. Ronald is the name of my father, and I think it means he who rules wisely in a Scandinavian language, but I'm not absolutely certain. The E stands for Erik, which is the Dutch version of Eric. My mother once read a book, and all the Dutchies out there will know Erik of het Kleine Insectenboek. It's sort of Godfried Bomans, who is a Dutch author. He's passed away. She loved that book, and so she just wanted to commemorate that as a name to me. Okay. Tamara asks, are you as adept with a samurai sword as you are with the Visconti opera elements? Can you prove it? Well, I already told you about the samurai sword video, huh? And guess what? At the end of that, it's a part where I actually use the swords. Not all of them, but a few. So I say again, 15 votes, and that video will go public. Just saying. Tadeus asks, I have seen your Leatherman mutt and various other tools. Being a fountain pen and knife collector myself, I was wondering if you collect more than just samurai swords and fountain pens. Well, orthodox music, as I said, sort of goes in there. As to knives, I'm not a huge knife user. I always carry, my colleagues always laugh at my utility belt, which is not really a utility belt. It's just one Leatherman pouch with a couple of things in there, which I now have to show you, which will also give you an idea of my length. Utility belt. Okay, so what's in there? Well, the pouch has a couple of things, which I now have to show you because I told you. Can I actually... Okay, I'll take off my belt here. This is all getting very intimate, isn't it? This is on me all the time. And this is what I consider my everyday carry knife stuff. The Netherlands has a very strict weapons law, so you cannot just carry huge knives on the street. This contains everything I need. So in here are, you wanted personal answers, you get personal answers. This is on me all day, every day. All right. There is a Phoenix LDO1 flashlight, which is awesome. It was a limited edition. I like it for a couple of reasons. This is not turning into some huge EDC style video, but I know that quite a couple of you out there like this stuff, so bear with me. Flashlight, 3 settings, pretty bright, a bit dimmer, and ultra bright. I love it. I have had this thing for, I think, it must be 4 or 5 years now. Still has the original battery in it. Absolutely great. Has a nice little clip, nice and springy. You can take it off, put it on the other way around if you like, which is kind of useful. I once was on holiday and I had a hat on. I could actually put this on the hat and I had light, hands-free, which I absolutely loved. So, there you have it, light. Second thing that's in there is a small Leatherman tool. This is the Style CS, which I love. A couple of reasons. It has on there a small knife, which is notoriously hard to get out. There we go. Small knife, very sharp, just small utility stuff. It has a nail file and a small flat-headed screwdriver on there. It has something I absolutely love. Well, I mean, it has a carabiner on there, which you can also use to open bottles. I don't drink alcohol, but some of my colleagues do, and they have used this in several occasions. Tweezers, always very useful. They go in there. What I like about this is that it has scissors on there. So this is not actually a pair of pliers. These are scissors, which are quite useful if you need to cut something. Usually my nails. When you're on the road, I'm in an urban situation, can be useful. Something else I got on there is this, very useful, true utilities, makes this the telescopic pen. It's not a fountain pen, it's a ballpoint pen. It's sickly useful because you always have a pen with you and it's super small. Once stored, it doesn't actually open up by accident. Great thing. Then in there is a larger multi-tool, which again has been used by colleagues to open up bottles of beer. This is a Leatherman Skeletool CX, which I also love. You get a knife, which is not huge, but definitely big enough for utility purposes, opening parcels, etc. Here you do have your pliers, which are not actually spring-loaded, but the standard round pliers, needle nose pliers, and just cutting stuff. And you have your bit things, two-ended bit, Phillips screwdrivers, and then in the little thing here, there is just flat-headed screwdriver stuff. So they have that. And then the final thing that's in here is in the back. This is a Bear Grylls Priorities of Survival pocket guide. I am not nuts, I'm not paranoid, I don't think I will ever need this, but I just like to have it. It shows you how to make fire, how to build a shelter, that kind of stuff. In the words of Ultimate Survival Tips, be prepared because you never know. So, there you have it. That was that. Tadias has another question. Also, what is the best large capacity fountain pen friendly notebook for note-taking and the like? I live in America and all the notebooks I find have serious issues with bleed through with all my pens, and it isn't just because I'm using a placard nib for a lot of it. Ach, mein Lieber. When you're using a placard nib, that is always going to bleed through, right? I mean, 10 millimeters, 15 millimeters, that's going to bleed through. But, I mean, assuming you're just getting there, serious note-taking, well, with huge nibs like that, you're always going to have bleed through. Leuchtturm 1917, so Leuchtturm 1917, they make very good notebooks, and get Rhodia. Get Rhodia notebooks. They are excellent, have nice heavy paper, smooth paper. I would check those out if I was you. Finally, the last question. The Ruffled Quill asks, well done, Stephen. At 400 YouTube videos, your channel has become my go-to destination for matters of the pen. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Seriously. How are Dan and Eric? No, the rats. Ah, yes. My pet rats, Dan and Eric. They're asleep. Otherwise, I would show them to you. They're great. Eric is a very kind-natured rat. You can pet him. Doesn't really like to be picked up, but you can sort of stroke him. Dan is a bit more restrained. He doesn't really like being touched, and that's cool too. I don't mind. So they're very different characters, but generally speaking, both very pleasant. Dan occasionally bites me, mainly when he thinks that my fingers are food, but that's not because he's evil, just because, I don't know, he likes food, I suppose. And they're great rats, fun to be around, nice pets, really intelligent. I'm still surprised at the smart stuff they do. They have a little ball to play with. They have a little, what do you call that, bowl for food. Once it's empty, they take the bowl, they put it in the bowl every day, without fail. I don't know. It's something they do. Maybe it's a sort of symbol like check, please. I don't know, but it's once they're done eating, they put the bowl in. Cool. Why not? So, my friends, that's a lot of questions. Bloody hell! A video of a good hour. I hope I haven't bored you to death. And once we make it to 800 videos, I guess we have to do this again. Maybe a bit earlier, maybe 500 or something. If you have questions, comment. You got my email address somewhere in this video. Feel free to contact me, and that's all there's to it. I hope this was useful, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.